We'll go now to gentlelady from California, Ms. Bono Mack, for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Demphley, I can't see you over there, but my first question is directed to you. Since Congress created the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards, or what we call CFATS, program in 2007, there have been ongoing problems with the way DHS has managed the program. These problems include DHS improperly tiering 600 chemical facilities, wasteful spending, and the inability of DHS to properly train the workforce responsible for carrying out the chemical security program. Hundreds of millions have been spent on CFATS. We find ourselves with a program that has been mismanaged, wasted taxpayer dollars, and no assurance that our chemical facilities are in fact secure. Can you tell me, with these significant problems in the instance of CFATS, how you could possibly ensure to this committee that DHS will not manage cybersecurity?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address that. The differences between chemical facilities and information technology and communication are fairly profound in that situation. And so as we work as a department of experts brought together and engage in these discussions with industry about what are the basic standards that are necessary, we envision building those basic standards in that scenario, and then learning lessons across the department from areas where we have worked through issues. We want to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes a second time.
Oh, with all due respect, I didn't really hear an answer in your answer, but I would say to you that perhaps there are differences between chemical facilities and cybersecurity, yet I think from the American people's point of view, it's the bureaucracies, and I think you've rattled off quite a list of acronyms. But I don't know that my constituents would feel safer by the list of acronyms that you have used. In fact, to me, did I mishear you? But the example of the EDA's website or network being down for weeks, when you were asked the question by the chairman, what do you do and that you are responsible for prevention and mitigation, is that not an example, though, of a failure of all of these bureaucracies to, in fact, work together well?
The example presented by the chairman, ma'am, with Commerce is an example where we in the department and the Department of Commerce have joint action that must be taken. So in that scenario, the Department of Commerce has the responsibility for the management and security of their systems in building them and in operating them, following the standards set by the Department of Homeland Security.
Thank you. To Admiral Barnett, I agree that the federal government should be involved in our country's cybersecurity efforts, absolutely, but that they should be enhancing cooperation and they should be the facilitator, not a regulator. Can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts on the value of a cooperative relationship with the private sector versus a regulatory one?
Yes, ma'am. So certainly the CISRIC actions last week are an example of that, but there are many, many others. CISRIC also addresses cooperation in the telecommunications industry on next generation 911, on our emergency alerting, and as Dr. Shannon mentioned, we've done this for years and years. I think it's helpful when you have the regulator who's the expert in the United States to be involved with this, to be able to sit down with industry. Just like the experts that I mentioned that I brought with me today, we have experts in other areas like the ones I've mentioned in Next Generation 911, to be able to sit down with the industry to pull them together. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons that we were able to pull together these experts to come up with voluntary and industry-based solutions.
Thank you. I think my biggest concern is recognizing how quickly the cyber world moves, and the bad guys are by nature one step ahead of the good guys. So the question really is, with all of the regulatory hurdles potentially, how do we really keep pace with the threat?
Yes, ma'am. So recognizing that the large majority of telecommunications and cybersecurity are in private hands, there's a couple of things to that. They are the first line of defense. Our actions, and I think what you've heard mostly from these panelists is to enhance those. But we also have to recognize something else. It's not working. We wouldn't be here concerned about this if that was enough. And so, as Dr. Shannon mentioned, we have to have metrics to make sure that the voluntary methods that we're employing work. And then beyond that, to look at whatever else. Hopefully, there would be other things that we could do. So information sharing is one thing. There may be other best practices that we can do. But the thing that's an absolutely prerequisite on this is we have to make sure that they're effective, because we cannot go on any longer the way we are now.
Thank you. My last question, then I'm out of time, but to any of you, are government agencies able to effectively combat cyber agitators that we're very well aware of right now, like Anonymous and LulzSec? And what are we doing to stop their attacks? To anybody, I'll pose that question, and then I'm out of time.
So government departments and agencies every day are working to defend against threats, as you indicated, both in terms of Anonymous and LulzSec. And in the instance where they have been unsuccessful, we work in partnership to help them overcome the impacts of those attacks in that situation through a layered defense strategy, which includes things like the Einstein program and things like the establishment of standards through the federal network security programs.
I would say just briefly, I would encourage you to talk to the law enforcement community. I think they've been doing a very effective job given some of the recent arrests in that area.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time, and I yield back.
Generally yields back, and